Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Villa Seamus on the southeast coast of Sardinia. We are back with you here for the World Great Grandmasters Beach Ultimate Club Championships. It is a beautiful morning here in Italy, and I am thoroughly delighted to be back with you, Benjamin Rees, here once more alongside Ali Thomas. What a morning it is.
It is absolutely delightful. Light breeze, lovely sunshine. Where else would we rather be? Nowhere, that's where.
I mean, certainly at the moment, I cannot think of anywhere better to be. We've had it's been a little bit it's been very hot, but a little bit muggy, a little bit overcast. The wind's changed direction, so rather than coming from the sea, kind of away from the cameras as you were seeing it, it's now kind of coming towards us, and it's very refreshing, and it's kind of blowing a lot of the clouds out to sea. Stunning views of the island here, and it's a privilege to be here, and I'm just very excited, and yeah, I've got that little bit of a buzz again this morning.
So we've already got a couple of people waiting to watch this first game, which is Borderline versus the Tragic Hips. So for anyone tuning in, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Is that how you refer to it, Benji?
I think that's the term. That is usually the accepted terminology.
And also, if you are in a position to do so, we appreciate all of our patrons over on patreon.com. And a special shout out to all of the members who joined yesterday: Andrea Snydero, Lorcan Murray, Justin Wallace and Carl Edwards. We really, really appreciate your patronage. So for just as little as £1 a month or whatever your local currency is, you can support us bringing free Ultimate on YouTube to the masses. But if you are not in a position to do so, any other engagement is also really, really appreciated.
Exactly, whether that's getting active in the comments of the YouTube section, whether you're kind of watching back through all the content, as we mentioned, all the good stuff, liking, subscribing, ringing the bell. I think that's how it works. I'm not a massive YouTuber, to be honest. But as well as that, you know, we're here today and tomorrow and Wednesday. And then immediately, you know, you don't even have to wait, because ex-UCF starts on Thursday, and we've got one pitch there on Thursday, and then two pitches Friday to Saturday as well. So there is so much Ultimate to be to get involved with, and as we mentioned, it's all out for free on YouTube. But if you feel that you've enjoyed the coverage and you can kick a couple of quid our way, it's very much appreciated.
So much frisbee goodness coming your way.
I mean, what a week it is. You know, we're coming straight from the utterly gorgeous Sardinia to, Bruges is a beautiful city as well. The weather might not be quite as good, but I'm sure the Ultimate will also be of a high quality, as Borderline is starting this game on offense, and we saw that Fox has a big arm and he winds up deep, and it is right on the money to Eric Bedard. So clearly picking up where they left off on the stream yesterday, taking an early lead in this game, 1-0.
Yeah, just, that's a big opener. That's a big statement from Borderline. We're here, we're ready to play. Definitely awake. They've had their morning espressos. Maybe Tragic Hips needed to wake up a little bit on defense.
So we mentioned that we streamed Borderline yesterday. That was the last game of the day for us in the 5 o'clock time slot. We saw them dispatch Courier Island 11-7. Tight at the start, and then Borderline were able to pull away. So they bounced back from their kind of agonising defeat in the morning, where they were 10-8 up on the Great Swedes. and then just couldn't close it out and went down 11-10. A mixed day as well for the Tragic Hips yesterday, Ali.
Yeah, so they also beat Courier Island with a slightly closer scoreline, 10-8, and then they lost to Young Legends, who are the top seed in their pool, in a closely fought game, but just couldn't quite come out on top. So this is the second seed and the third seed in the pool, so should be in for a really tight, exciting game today.
Yeah, it feels like this is a pool where it's not going to be like a clear differentiation necessarily between 1, 2, 3, 4. It might be perhaps, or even below that. That it feels like every team could take a game from another team if they just kind of click into gear early enough.
Absolutely.
So first point on offense here for the Tragic Hips. Trying to look around, finding an option. Here's June with that Canadian headband, showing her allegiances, and there's going to be a stoppage because I think
foul called.
Yeah, McConville just getting a little bit handsy. June looks towards the reset, begins to clear out, and then gets the pass in the middle. That's Katz, and Katz goes back to June. That's a lovely throw into space and a lead pass. He's agonisingly out of reach. And it required Zika to go down to the ground, and he very nearly got there, but it was just a touch too spicy.
That roll curve with the change of direction, I think he was probably expecting it to sit out a bit more and have the wind keep it up, but the wind is the other way today.
Shout out to her, as this one is deep. It is very deep and reeled in with one hand. Everyone stopped downfield, so I was wondering, was there some sort of call that I missed? But I think everyone knew it was just a question of whether Bronson could reel it in, and Bronson had the wheels, and that makes it a break for Borderline. They're 2-0 up.
Something to notice as well is that the Tragic Hips have 3 women on their roster, and they are playing at least, well, I think it is just 1 woman every point. And they have a lot of faith in their women, and they really expect their women to be, making a contribution in these games.
Yeah, they're certainly not here to make up numbers, and they said that they had every confidence that they would match them up against whoever, and that they could come out on top of those matchups.
Love to see it in the Open Division.
Well, this is the thing. It is the Open Division, and especially at Great Grandmasters level, where perhaps the athleticism is not necessarily as strong as it is, then you can make more of a back on with yourself with your field sense and with your throwing, and whereas in the especially kind of at the, I was going to say the Open, of course this is the Open Division, not the normal age brackets, the standard, you know what I'm trying to say, right? the below Masters age brackets. I feel like you certainly see teams and players who can kind of get away with it just on the back of their athleticism.
That's very true.
I think I got there in the end.
Yes.
First game of the morning as well for us. That one, it lands in. That is a great pull. And maybe I think Clark thought, like maybe what I thought, that the wind was going to push it out of this sideline. But the disc had just enough edge on it to land inbounds. Little offhand, backhand there. Finds Martin Glazer. And Glazer finds Clark underneath. Here's Guatz. And there's going to be a stoppage for a pick, I believe.
The Borderline player catching up. Oh.
Yeah, a little bit congested in there, so Clark did the right thing and just kind of stopped. Drew a couple of defenders, but the swing is a little bit errant. And Borderline looking to strike quickly once more. This would open up a 3-0 advantage. Here's Martin going backwards, and again another errant throw. So Borderline's first turnover of the game as well. Disc is going to be picked up here. Nice little inside break, finds Glazer, and Glazer gets a bump on the mark for his troubles from Phillips. Guy begins to clear out, but the disc goes deep, looking towards the far side. Defender saw it late, nearly got a hand in there, but well tracked and well read by the Tragic Hips. They are on the board this morning. They trail 2-1. In the end, it is number 18, Daniel Guatz, with the goal.
That was a really, really tough disc to read. It was sort of behind him on one side and then behind him on the other side, and then finally just landed in his lap. So, yeah, skill on the reading and skill on the throw as well.
So both of these sides from North America, borderline kind of from the US-Canadian border, and Tragic Hips there have a strong Canadian contingent as well.
Though ironically, though there's a lot of Canadian flags on the borderline kit, they have not any Canadians on their team this time around.
It didn't quite bring that international flavour that perhaps they, at least intra-team, that they might have done in previous years. But it's always nice to see teams commit to making the journey from the US, from Canada, from around Europe and around the world to to commit and come to this tournament, which obviously this was not the original date that they had in mind. No. But it's been delayed, and that has caused teams and players to not be able to make it. So it's good that these teams were able to get some teams together, even if borderline especially are very low on numbers this week. So the wind kicking up a little bit there, just tries to put one over the top, and the defender just gets caught underneath it, and thankfully for borderline, Eric Bedard was there to reel it in. That one's going to pop up as well. Maybe another second effort grab, but it dropped just before Bronson could bring it up.
The wind is really starting to pick up now. It was a gentle breeze a few minutes ago, and now it's blowing a lot more steadily.
So here's Engelbrecht underneath, nice. Going down to the knees is Zika, securing the catch. And Zika just about sneaks that one through to June. Points where she wants the cut to develop. Finds the space, and it bounces off the hands of Wolf Makeup.
Valiant effort.
I thought it was going to be good, and it just didn't quite get his hand far enough out, but it was mighty close.
I think the next few points are going to come from the team that's adapting fastest to the wind here.
Yeah, as we mentioned, literally the completely opposite direction to where it was yesterday. And indeed on the Saturday, when teams were kind of doing some warm-ups and scrimmaging to get used to the conditions. And it's a definite spanner in the works. Nice lower round break. Like, see that players are comfortable going to their knees, even if it's not as spectacular. It means that they can get that, still present that backboard, that body behind the disc, as Fox winds up the arm once more, and it blades, and the beads I think was always going to come up a little bit short, and the Tragic Hips try to get it in quickly. Just about tipped, but Patrick van der Valk, who is not American or Canadian, he is Dutch, but is almost ever-present at these beach tournaments. Makes the underpass, but June can't hang on, and now there's a player that's taken off deep, but it's overthrown. Just rushed the throw a little bit, probably.
Yeah, and again, there have been a lot of hucks yesterday that we saw going down this near sideline and sitting out relatively nicely, but as we keep saying, with the wind as different as it is today, it's a very different story.
And they just kind of zipped that one, and you could see Bedard knew from relatively early on that it was always going to be too far out in front. So the Tragic Hips will mark this up to the line. And it will be checked in by Katz. Katz looking for an option downfield on a high stall. Picks them, turns and finds a receiver. And Bronson signals that the disc is down after they get a D on it. Here's Bedard. And Furland finds Fox. That is a delicious low release inside break. One of my favourite throws. And the high release backhand, you can hear Zika struggling a little bit on the mark, and again just not finding the scoring pass.
Wait, that wasn't a goal? He was so free. I thought he'd spiked it.
Must have skimmed some sand on the way through. So Van der Valk finds June and then gets the disc back, demonstrating that he wants some cutters to go downfield, but the movement and the timing's not quite there. And Van der Valk going every other at the moment. And that one, it's high, and maybe a chance at a second effort. No, too far out in front for Katz, and a few turnovers at this point. You do see this happen, especially on the beach, where after a couple of turnovers, you can feel the lactic acid building up in the players' legs almost, and it becomes a real slog.
The the tragic thing, I suppose, is that they're making all the right shapes. You know, both teams, they're doing all the right cuts, but just the throws are causing all of these turns.
It is very much a thrower's wind, this, as Bedard looks to demonstrate that he is that thrower, and Turi can't turn that in. I think maybe he had a bit of chance to milk it, but he would rather make sure that he had the catch in 2 hands, and then does find finally the scoring pass to Henry Furlan, and borderline reopen their 2-point advantage. The Americans lead 3-1.
And that really shows the importance of sticking with your person when there's a turn. You know, no matter how tired you are, if you are not there to cover your person, it's just an easy score.
It was a lovely deep throw as well. Got the right sort of shape on it as well. Just enough loft to sit it on the wind and make Turi's job as easy as possible.
I like that he didn't try and do a sort of long jump in, because the number of fumbled discs I've seen on players trying to jump at about 3 meters into the end zone is it's an upsettingly high number.
Yeah, always make sure you've got the catch first, and then think, and well, yeah, especially if you're definitely going to be in the pitch, catch first and then score second, because there's no point jumping it in, as you mentioned. If it then slips through the fingers, it's, you know, it's a waste.
Can't score if you don't have the disc.
That is true. No one has ever scored by not catching the disc in the other team's end zone. So Daniel McConville has got the disc in his hands, ready to pull. You will notice that it is the pink disc that we see on the beach, because it shows up contrast better, especially on this white Sardinian sand. And you may notice those flags kind of fluttering a little bit in the background. It's a pink Euro disc who provided the pitch discs for this week's tournament.
100% organic.
So they are green even though they are pink.
It's not a good colour combo.
It's an interesting one, certainly. Going for the low release break. Oof. Dangerous, because it invited the bid through, and I'm not sure whether that was the intended target originally, was Quartz, but got to say that I think the borderline defended it really well, because they got their head around just in time to make sure that they could get an arm and a block in the way.
Yeah, it looks like, you know, North American players potentially a little bit more comfortable with a higher level of contact, and that is a huck and a half.
And that's a reception and a half as well. Bronson just plucks it out of the sky, made that look so much easier than it is, especially on this surface. Now borderline, try and get players up. A continuation, and Bronson, who gained most of the yardage with the catch on the huck, this time burns to the open side. Another break for borderline, 4-1 their advantage now.
That is one for the highlight reel. That was gorgeous huck, got up higher than anyone has a right to on sand, and then just a lovely cut open side. Easy score. Well, not easy, but they make it look easy.
I mean, that's the thing. It is so difficult to time and execute those jumps when you're on the shifting sands. And you can see it brings it down so quickly that it's almost catches everyone off guard. Because it feels like, oh, he's going to really have to chase it down, but he timed his jump to perfection. And then I like that they didn't just focus entirely on the end zone. They had the awareness from the players running in to help, so they take the swing, and that is able to free Bronson on that far side for the goal.
Very, very nice frisbee.
(4-1) here in Sardinia for the World Great Grandmasters Beach Ultimate Club Championships. Games played to 13 is the point cap this weekend. 45 minutes is when the time cap comes on, and you take halves at 7, or there is a 25-minute half-time point cap as well. We're a little under 15 minutes in here, so 10 minutes to go until we would get that half-time cap. As this pull is going to pin the Tragic Hips right at the back of the end zone. A monster pull from Ed Fox. Maybe he has outfoxed the Tragic Hips here. Yeah, I had to do it eventually. But I must say they have stayed very calm and very collected. They will have seen this situation numerous times before, and they have not been fazed by it, to their credit. Here's Maycut. Maycut looks, the roll curving back out of Van der Valk, never came quite back in bounds. Van der Valk laid it anyway, because you never know, and unfortunately it is a turnover, and I don't think it got back in bounds, so it should come in from probably about the halfway line.
Yeah, that deep cut was developing for quite a long time, and credit to the thrower for hanging off as long as he did, because there's always a temptation if you see someone going deep and just immediately throwing it, which in this wind will not get you very far. But just a second too early.
So Ed Fox will bring it in right in front of Royal Pendo on camera 2, and then going with the IO break across the pitch. This one, nearly worked its way through, and perhaps I thought that it shouldn't have done, but it got enough edge to keep itself in bounds, but unfortunately it hung for too long, and that allowed the Tragic Hips defenders to close in. Here's Van der Valk going down the line. Has an option in the form of G. Looking around for the break, it's blading once more, and doesn't give the receiver a chance to reel it in. So perhaps another break opportunity here for Borderline.
Well, that upwind breaking the force is just so difficult.
Yeah, if you just get ever the wrong edge, ever so slightly, or you don't quite generate the torque and revolutions on the disc that you would like, it does punish you. Here's Bedard, and I think there's going to be a call for maybe a pick downfield, or perhaps a little bit of a push-off, perhaps.
All seems pretty amicable.
Yeah, obviously these players will be familiar with one another, so that does help to improve spirit. It's Fox.
Tasty.
That is delectable inside break. A delectable inside break. A little bit of conversation from Mark Zika, who is on his knees on the 4th, and there wasn't a huge amount that Zika could do about that.
No, I mean, especially on beach, you really have to pick whether you're going to try and stop a round or an inside break, because the shuffling from side to side is so much slower. So, yeah, picking the round in that case just meant that he opened up quite a wide IO channel, and the Borderline player was just perfectly positioned for that break.
And he just gets so low and leans on it. It is a sumptuous throw. And, you know, maybe you think, oh, if it's a low release, go for the foot block. Of all the players on the board, on the Tragic Hips team to be going for the foot block, the one I would be very surprised is Mark Zika.
Yes, we were told earlier that he is playing through a broken toe, which he has had thoroughly taped up, but a broken toe is a broken toe nonetheless. So we'll see how that goes throughout the rest of the week for him.
Yeah, and especially it sand's probably the worst surface for that, because sometimes you do stub your toes in the sand, and it's incredibly painful. So yeah, a bit of a struggle sometimes, but love to see the commitment to playing through it, because, you know, it's Beach Worlds in Sardinia. I mean, it must be gutting to come and then not be able to play. It's Engelbrecht, we will not see on the pitch today. He had an Achilles problem coming in, tried it out yesterday, and then just couldn't. Decided that he, you know, rather than do himself a proper damage, he was instead going to kind of relax on the sidelines, support the team, enjoy the festivities. But you will see him wandering around with his camera equipment in tow as well.
And to be fair, there are worse places to be on the sideline than on a beach in Seamus.
Right? So the Tragic Hips just haven't quite made it work somehow. They've shown a lot of good things, but maybe not quite consistently enough. Instructions from the sideline. They want players to clear out, feeling it's a bit too congested in that handler space. Going to be a brief stoppage here, so I'm just going to wait for the disc to get checked back in. Thinks about the high release. Oh, it's that really tricky one, the Oyo almost, the outside inside out, where you've got that blade through the inside out channel, and it's difficult to reel in if there is a receiver there. But that time it looked like some sort of miscommunication.
Also, especially with that wind's going to push it really far towards that opposite sideline.
And they're going to try and sit this one up. Boxes out on the end zone line. Trevathan looks around, and Phillips now looking for an end zone. Look as the wind really whips up, and McConville uses that cheater's lefty advantage. The quick pivot out, sometimes it just takes that extra split second to adjust the force, but he pivots out and releases it so quickly and so smoothly that there's nothing the mark can do about this, and Borderline running away with it a little bit here at 6-1.
Ed Fox has been playing, looks like almost every point. He's not been taking many off, and he has just been doing bits on either side of the disc. I think this might be his first goal, but he's thrown some stellar hucks, you know, assisted, hockey assisted. Really key player for this team.
Yeah, Fox and McConville have been a rock solid handling core, and it's really nice because they've got the the lefty-righty combination as well, and it causes handler defenders kind of, again, you've got that extra beat to think about, and it can disrupt your timing and your rhythm, and as I say, it means you've got different throws in different directions. Those inside outs kind of cutting against the wind, well, in one direction it's the lefty flick and it's the righty flick and the lefty backhand, and in the other, obviously vice versa, righty backhand, lefty flick. And they've just been very effective so far for Borderline. This is a consummate performance so far.
Don't know if you can see in the background the masseuse table and a couple of players getting sports massage before their first game.
It's never necessarily a good sign when you're doing it before the day's play has even started for your team. But, I mean, there's a reason why they have the physios on hand, and it is to help make things as easy as possible for the players. This time, they're not going to die wondering. They're looking big to the back corner of the end zone. It's an inch-perfect hook from Van der Valk to Meillard, and that finally gets the Tragic Hips back on the board at 6-2. That's going to be a big confidence booster for the quote-unquote Canadians.
That had just the perfect angle on it for the perfect amount of sit. We've seen quite a few roll curve hucks just being pushed into the floor, but that one had just enough kind of IO on it to really sit out in front, and defender was nowhere near.
It held its shape and it's held its line nicely, and I like as well that they're utilising the full depth of the end zone. It doesn't matter if you toe the line at the front or the back, they all count the same.
Absolutely.
Beautiful put there.
So apparently, just a bit of background on the Tragic Hips team. There were 2 Canadian teams who played in the last iteration of this tournament in 2018. But due to some rule changes in terms of age eligibility, a lot of the players weren't able to come back this year. So those 2 teams merged to form the Tragic Hips, which is a callback to a Canadian rock band, the Tragically Hip, who some of you may have heard of.
I must admit, I'm not overly familiar with that. That's the word, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard it applied to rock bands, but yes, I guess technically.
Well, they're Canadian, right? It's French-Canadian, that works. I don't know if they're French-Canadian or Canadian. I'll move on. Here's McConville looking downfield, bit of work to do, and I think maybe Bedard had a little bit more time to bring that in, but it's so difficult to make up the space on the sand.
Oh, no.
And then just a simple drop on an underpass. That's not what you want to see if you're a Tragic Hips fan. And the high release backhand layout snags it off the surface. Brilliant grab from Eric Bedard, and that will take us into half-time with Borderline posting a 7-2 lead.
What a way to take half. I mean, we've just been seeing some incredible plays down in this end zone. I really thought that was going to be too far, but this is why you never ever give up on a disc, even if you think it's too far in front.
Especially on the sand, because you do have that ability to kind of throw yourself around with a bit more abandon, and in the end, rather than kind of going fully horizontal, it's just kind of going down to the knees, making sure you're getting that hand underneath the disc. And the advantage of landing like that rather than landing flat is that it's a bit easier perhaps on your arms and on your elbows, and you're less likely to ground trip yourself and jar it loose when you go to the floor.
Oh, definitely. And it also means you can avoid getting a face full of sand. Which
yes,
is,
that is also,
yeah.
which, trust me, is not fun. We know the propensity, I'm going to use propensity, of sand to find its way into every possible nook and cranny.
Propensity works, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, like, we have, our apartment is covered in sand, and like everyone, you know, they shower a little bit before they get in, you know, they make sure they shake themselves off, bang the feet, wipe the feet, whatever, and the apartment's still covered in sand.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine taking off your sand socks at the end of the day and there just being a cascade of sand.
Oh. Yikes. And we've got a few players wearing sand socks. One of the advantages of not having those games in kind of the lunchtime period, there's a gap. So the last game, so the morning games will finish kind of a little bit before 12 o'clock, and the afternoon games don't start till 3:30. And it means actually that you're not playing when kind of the weather's at its hottest and the sand's at its hottest as well, as this inside-out backhand with the lefty pull is, well, you can see there what effect the wind had on it, because it saw that edge and gleefully pushed it out of bounds. So that will be taken in on the brick mark. Yeah, so you're not on the sand when the sand's at its hottest, so sand socks aren't a necessity as perhaps they were in the last 2 WCBUs in Dubai and in Maehr, where a lot of players struggled with struggled on the sand because it was so hot, and
They had to get an emergency shipment in, didn't they, of
yeah,
sand socks?
because they basically cleaned out all the stores of sand socks because the sand was so hot. And you know, perhaps with a slightly smaller tournament here, you've got the ability to protect the players that way, which is good to see. And it's, you know, just nice to get a little bit of a rest.
Little nap, little beer.
Little siesta. Yeah, what more could you ask for? Here's Cats.
7, 8.
Very loud store count coming there. So clearly Phillips wants his teammates to know that the store count's rising, and potentially some swill could go up as Van der Valk gets the up line, the little inside window. Phillips is visibly frustrated with himself, but Van der Valk really threaded the needle and snuck that one into Cats for a 7-3 scoreline.
That's one of the dangers of face marking, or rather having your back totally to the thrower when you are that close to them in the end zone, is they can see that your back is turned and they will put it where you are not looking.
I mean, ideally as a defender, you want to be in a position where you've got sight of kind of your matchup and of the disc, and just a split second too late for Phillips. Caught it in the peripheral vision but couldn't react in time. And Van der Valk's strong game continues. This time he finds Cats for the goal.
Need to flail your arms with purpose if you're face marking, on the off chance you can get a sort of cheeky elbow D.
And people say, oh, we got very, very lucky there. But, you know, on the other hand, if you don't put your arms out, it's not going to happen.
There we go.
Is it, I think it's a Yogi Berra-ism. Like, the harder I practice, the luckier I get.
There we go. Gosh, that's deep for Yogi Bear.
Yogi Berra.
Yogi Bear, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
there
the
we
former
go.
Yankees catcher, then manager.
I'm just picturing Yogi Bear practicing stealing picnic baskets.
Yeah, and like got like people distracting him with like wavy arms everywhere. Like one of the the tube men that you get like with the inflatable ones.
Yes, yes.
It's a valid tactic. So Fox catches the pull and he finds McConville. These two have been rock solid in their borderline handling core, I have to say. And a little bit of a change defensively here for Tragic Hips. They're going for some zone. Oh, I like this, Ali.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's forced to turn.
Just making them to kind of move the disc a bit more laterally, increase the number of passes, and then you get maybe, you know, the more passes you make, the more chance there is that you get perhaps a throwing error or an errant drop.
And also leaving that swing kind of open on the far side. Not sure if that was on purpose or not, but those swings are not easy with this wind, and we see that here.
That one is read brilliantly by Furland. He finds Fox, and Fox winds up the arm, shoots it deep, right in stride for Bronson, and that'll be 8-3.
Bronson does a little slow pirouette in celebration.
A lovely put, that one. And you know what? The thing about the Tragic Hip zone is, even if, you know, they struggled on the second position for borderline because they didn't get the zone set quickly enough. You know, the fact is that they are down a decent amount in this game, and you know what? Why not try something different? Because there's still enough time in this game where if you find a strategy that works and it frustrates and kind of stymies Borderline's offense a bit, then hey, there is definitely still time to come back.
Yeah, I really, really like that zone look, and unfortunately they're coming out, well, I mean, not super unfortunate, they're coming out on offense, but if they put this in, I would be surprised if they didn't come out with another zone look, or the same zone look even.
Yeah, and you are right, you know, those swings, they are more dangerous in this wind. It takes the overheads out of play a little bit more as well, because one of the difficulties with playing zone on the beach is that it's quite a big surface for 5 players, and you don't necessarily have the recovery speed and kind of the range of movement that you would on grass or indoors, because, you know, just moving on sand is a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely.
So Van der Valk and Cats do a little bit of 1-2 in the handler set. Upline looks for Van der Valk, and the defender comes in but doesn't get there. Van der Valk tries to sneak it past, but that one just doesn't quite get enough loft underneath it. Was looking for makeup, one of his favourite targets, but it falls to the floor, and Fox will be able to walk over and bring it back in.
Again, it's that roll curve near sideline shot which the wind is just very happily pushing onto the floor.
It's so tricky to get the right edge on that, because there is so little margin for error. As Fox again with that inside flick. What a throw it is. Here's Trevathan.
if in doubt, dump it off to Fox.
Yeah, and just because he's got those inside flicks out with such devastating regularity and precision, it means that alters the way that you play on the mark. You know, you're wearing, stopping that inside shot, and even though Van der Valk was ready, knew that it was going to come, he couldn't stop it, but that time they got the block. And timeout called there. Both sides have 1 timeout per game, and the Tragic Hips electing to use theirs here.
So about 15 minutes left of this game.
Yeah, and then the games, as we mentioned, 45 minutes plus time cap in 2-hour slots. That's a lovely shot, that, actually. Right down in front of Cam 2. Nice little.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's getting a nice little kind of highlight reel of the game so far. It's yeah. So we mentioned there's 4 game slots each day, and they are 9:30, 11 o'clock, and then you get the lunch break 3:30 and 5. Games are 45 minutes plus cap, which is usually 10-15 minutes or so. So there is, you know, at least half an hour between each game. And each team plays 1 game in the morning and 1 game in the evening, so it works out quite nicely as well.
Unfortunately, we don't have it because we've got the highlight reel, but the Tragic Hips are doing a little hip dance, maybe just trying to keep themselves limber during this timeout.
Yeah, when we spoke to Daniel Guartz, the cap, who was very, very generous with his time and kind of talked us through the team.
Yes.
And yeah, as we mentioned, that they might have a couple of little spirit dances that they wanted to bust out to kind of, yeah, to keep spirits high and get a bit of energy in. And I like this. I like that they stay true to their word.
Yes, definitely.
Not that they would not, obviously, but
this team does also still have all of their hips. We have heard of hip replacement surgeries happening in previous years on other teams, but this team, not so much.
I'm pretty sure there is at least. I'm pretty sure there's a player on Flash who has had some sort of hip surgery as well.
Yes.
Like the fact, like any surgery is, you know, I think we take it for granted, especially in elite sport, because players seem to come back from it, you know, very frequently. But
yes.
Any time that your body goes through that, it's, you know, it's not necessarily, it's not what it's designed for. So the fact that you can put your body through that and come out the other side, and, you know, kind of still have the passion and the fire that often the rehab process can drain out of you.
Very true. And, you know, elite sports people have teams of physios and nutritionists and everything to get them back on the pitch as quickly as possible.
Whereas at this tournament, it's supposed to be kind of teams of physios, although we do have the kind of the sports therapist. It's more like reams of physio tape. Here's Clark on the precipice of the end zone, looking for Van der Valk. Lovely around break in stride for the Tragic Hips. The timeout does the business there. 7-4 the scoreline, and after a very rocky start, the Tragic Hips are hanging around a little bit now.
Yeah, definitely. That was. I hope that is exactly what they said they were going to do in the timeout, and they executed it to perfection. As opposed to what sometimes happens after a timeout, which is you score, but not quite in the way that you had originally intended.
I mean, I've spoken a lot over the years about the curse of the turnout. You know,
time over.
The time over. I don't like time. I prefer turnout because I think time over implies could be the end of the game. You know what I mean?
But turnout is also a word in itself, you know?
Yes, yeah. Either way, but the idea that often you see teams take the time out and then turn over, because while it's good to get yourself set up, you know, the defense can then adjust and set around you. You know, it takes a couple of seconds just to get everyone moving and to kind of start that flow, and that's a couple of seconds out of the stall count, especially if the timeout is taken on a high stall.
That's a bad idea in general.
Yeah, then you don't have the time to let players get back into play. Your internal clock has to work a little bit differently, but that time executed to perfection by the Tragic Hips. Here's Bedard catching the underpass. He's got the swing available if he wants it. Instead, finds McConville, who goes to the ground but keeps it alive expertly. The wind really whipping up, and again, the zone's getting the turn that perhaps it wanted. Just the concentration drops.
Definitely. And also doing a really good job of forcing that deep player, or staying behind that deep player and neutralising any long shots.
Which we know that they are all too happy to throw. This throw from Guy just flutters up. Nice attempt to try and save it from Guartz, but it goes into the sand. And McConville steps, looks, finds Bedard, one of his favourite targets, downfield. And it wasn't the cleanest of points for Borderline, but I'm not sure they'll mind in the end. 8-4 they lead.
It's so tough when you're trying to make what in your head is a very simple throw because your receiver is very close to you. But unfortunately in windy conditions you still have to add that extra level of concentration, put that much bit of spin on it. Otherwise, as we just saw, the wind will snaffle it.
So there was the drop that gave the tragic hips the turn, and then you're seeing it here, just, you know, not quite following through with the pivot, as you mentioned, you know, not generating the snap and the torque with the wrist to get that spin, and it flutters over the head into the sand, and then McConville picks up the disc and he knows exactly what he wants to see, and much to his pleasure, he sees it, Bedard cutting free to the open side to put that backhand out in stride for the goal.
So I've just been told from the comments that number 34 for Borderline, Bronson, he's been competing in ultramarathons.
What?
So he can literally run all day. Thank you very much, Michael, for that inside info.
Good Lord. I mean, talking about, you know, we said a lot of these players, you had to be so fit to run on sand. I mean, that proves it. Ultramarathons at any age is a phenomenal achievement, let alone when you're a great grandmaster. I mean, that's a level of fitness that I can only dream of.
I think for a lot of people too.
So the tragic hips, trying to get it going on offense once more. Oh, that is a delicious throw, and just couldn't quite scoop it. Katz went right hand to try and snaffle in the trailing edge, and maybe, if you're being hypercritical, the left hand would have been the play. But I mean, it was a great attempt, and well, Bronson does the same thing, tries to go with the trailing edge before it hits the sand. He can't reel it in either.
I very much respect the gratuitous layout right in front of the camera. I think that's definitely the right attitude.
I mean, if you're not going to lay out in front of the camera, when are you going to do it?
Yeah, on beach too.
Right? Perfect for it. And this is a nice throw because it's kind of the downfield players are spaced far enough away that they've got the lead throw with the defender's back turn, and it was just a touch too strong. And I must admit, this is the way I was coached, that seeing anyone go for things trailing edge makes me a little bit seasick almost.
Yeah, I can sympathise with that.
Inside shot that time from June, just skims off the hands and into the sand. Maietta couldn't reel it in. Fox, you can hear the sideline going low hands because they know that he wants that raking inside shot. Trying to force Phillips into the reset on Fox. Fox, love that, squares up a little bit so he's got the ability for the low release, and then, well, a sneaky, I was going to say saucy, but I mean, the sauce was not maybe the easiest to handle, but it seemed to work just as well, and it's a break for Borderline to go up 9-4.
It's a spicy, saucy scuba.
I mean, it is. Is it the most attractive scuba I've ever seen? No, but I've seen a lot more attractive scubas go not be caught for scores. So I think that is what really matters, and you're seeing it here. There's Fox. He's not looking downfield. He's pivoting inwards slightly. He's squared the hip so he can get that around break, and then Furland with the scuba, giving the benefit of the doubt that he knew what he was doing there.
I would really like to see whoever's marking Fox try and take away that IO channel a bit more, because the round break downwind is possibly an even more difficult throw than the IO break upwind. So
and they know, like, you can see them, they know it's coming. It's just the question is, can you get there in time to stop it? But yeah, maybe going flatter or straight up on Fox could be a potential thing to think about and consider.
He is also a tall boy, so, you know, being able to cover his full range of pivot motion is no easy feat.
I know it's unfair, isn't it? I know it's unfair. You are a good few inches taller than I am.
Still a good few inches shorter than Fox.
I mean, that is true, yes. So yeah, I'd like to see players utilising that long reach and the long wingspan on when they've got the disc in hand, rather than just being a big target downfield. So Guy just pinging it around the backfield at the moment with Clark. Sneaks that one through to Ayuto. Looking for Guy. Deep one, but there's no players beyond him, so he has to turn and look back into the handlers there, and then finds the option downfield in Guartz. Guartz turns to the end zone, does the right thing, takes the poach dump, and you mentioned that backhand swing into the wind. And you could see it. It thought it was there for Clark, and it just kept rising.
There was also some really good defense from Borderline there. Fantastic switch between the mark and the player guarding the one racing into the end zone. Very intelligent D.
Good communication, which is very important, especially on the sand, where you need to be efficient with your movement. There's that one searching for McConville. Guartz, I think, got a hand in there to disrupt it. And Glazer is going to take his time, I think, striding over to this, just so his receivers can get a chance to get into position. Looks like they're going a vertical stack in the end zone, perhaps. 2 at the back, and they're isolating Guartz at the front.
An end zone play.
Give him a lot of space to work with. We haven't really seen teams set up dedicated end zone plays as yet so far. Glazer's not finding an option that he likes, and then toes it in the front of the end zone, does he? He does indeed. Goal, yeah, goal signalled. Ayuto it is with the layout. Nice balletic footwork at the front of the end zone. A little bit of twinkle toes for the score to make it 10-5 to Borderline.
And then a slightly less balletic nosedive forward into the sand. Sometimes that momentum can just, as you're trying to keep your toes in, just force the rest of your body slightly forwards, but at least it's a nice soft surface for him to crash into.
I mean, that's the advantage, as we've said it before, that's the great thing about playing in sand, is that you can do that. And it's a bit less painful than it would be, well, especially on indoors, but where believe me, it can hurt.
Oh, yes.
And then even, you know, hard grass or AstroTurf, yeah, he looks down at it, thinks about it. I was going to say begrudgingly signals it. I don't think it is begrudging at all. It's just like, if anything, it's because he's frustrated that he's allowed the score rather than, oh no, I don't want to give this. I think it is just that, I wish I didn't get beaten.
Yeah. A thought every Frisbee player has had.
So Van der Valk now has the disc looking to pull. Rather than it being a strict O-line and D-line for the Tragic Hips, it feels like they've got one line going in one direction and one line going in the other. They've brought 12 players this weekend as opposed to weekend this week. Keep doing that. As Fox looks downfield. Oh, fantastic bid by Van der Valk. Bit of contact, but a nice slap of hands afterwards. Strong hands, actually, you have to say, from Bronson making that catch and sticking it in there under a lot of pressure. And Borderline reopen a 6-point lead at 11-5. As the time now is over, so just trying to work out whether it went before or after that point was scored.
I feel like there maybe should be another point, and Guat certainly thinks there should be because he's walking towards the line.
Yeah, there's definitely going to. It's just, is the cap already on now, so it'll be game to 12, or do we have? Will it be this point and then cap? So the question is about exactly when the hooter ends, because, and this is going to sound really obvious, but obviously it's a terminology thing. The next point starts as soon as the previous point finishes, which I know you're like, well, yeah, but it means that even if you haven't necessarily pulled, the point, as soon as someone catches the goal, the next point starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the hooter goes when you're waiting to pull, it still counts as finishing that point.
So a little break as they sort it out between themselves, and we will have at least one more point.
Which is good, because I'm very much enjoying this.
Yes.
Hasn't gone the way the Tragic Hips would have hoped, but when they've made it work, it has looked really nice. They just haven't got that consistently enough, I don't think.
So we've got, oh, we don't have that player on our roster.
12?
No.
No, I wonder if it's Dorf playing through an injury, or whether they've maybe snaffled someone else at the tournament.
They did say that their injured player was 6'3", and he looks quite tall, so I wonder if that is the number 17 wearing a different number.
If it is, that would be Dick Dorf, who we did not see. I mean, this is the great thing about the open division, is that anyone can play. You know, gender doesn't matter. You know, if you're good enough and you want to be there, then yeah, absolutely you can play. And you know, the Tragic Hips did say that they have full confidence in their women. You know, they weren't gonna deliberately look them off because of their gender, or you know, not throw to them. You know, if they were free, they were happy to, you know, put the trust in them, which is good. You know, just play as if they're another person. Gender doesn't matter.
Something I think we all can follow the example of, which would be a good thing.
Right. Unfortunately, a lot of the world do not see things the same way. But we can only hope that there is a point when it just becomes a thing that we just don't even talk about.
That would be so nice. Oh my God.
Right? I know. As they went through D, there we go. Caught Fox napping, and Katz absolutely rocketed through, and it would have been what a double happiness. But he lays out, and it is just too far. Whoa, I mean, he came herring down the pitch like he was shot out of a cannon.
That was incredible. Oh my God. Chase down your pulls. More plays like that, please.
Right, we were speaking on the sideline earlier to Sofia Pereira. Of course, right up at the top of BULA, the Beach Ultimate Lovers Association, and she was saying that she was surprised by just quite how fast and how fit a lot of these players are, and we saw it there.
I think the Tragic Hips really know that time is running out, and if they want to try and get a few more points on the board, now is the time.
So Katz looking around, tries to blade it across the pitch, and the wind just slams the door in Katz's face, I'm afraid. Conville wants to end it in one, but this is going to be blocked and swatted down to the sand. Tragic
Hips has pulled an incredible defense out of somewhere. Really turned it up to 11.
It just is, for Tragic Hips, they might be thinking it's a bit of a shame that they kind of couldn't find this fire a little bit earlier as the throw from Van der Valk goes into the sand, but I think that's going to go back for a foul from John Turbo Turi.
I was going to say, I think they've maybe taken some of their offense magic and put it into their defense. There's a conservation here.
Here's Katz looking for the upline cut to Van der Valk. Thought about the put, but the timing, perhaps the cut wasn't quite there to be thrown to. And a high stall, Van der Valk tries to get the inside out, but the wind turns it over and pushes it out of bounds.
I think a little bit of fatigue potentially starting to creep into this play here. We were talking yesterday about how as you are tired, your decision-making skills can also suffer a bit, so that may be what we are seeing here.
These are the distinctive Fox with those three-quarter length tights, the vivid sand socks, and that USA neckband as well as the purple and gold cap, which I wonder what cap that's from. I'll have to have a look at that.
Maybe some kind of American ADL. Looks like it has a rainbow on the front.
Could be a rainbow, couldn't it? This one is just outside the end zone. Borderline on the precipice of victory here. Bedard often seen catching the goals. This time he's going to dish from McConville. Thought about it, and Van der Valk gets turned around at just the wrong time. Throw goes into Turi, and a lot of players on their haunches, hands on knees, and then come the slap of the hands, and I think that is game. It just looks like they've got nothing left.
Yeah, really. Just completely spent. No call, just everyone recovering a little bit.
I mean, it's almost like one of those like Renaissance paintings where everyone's just kind of frozen in position and in time. It was very strange. It was like you're playing musical statues and someone just turned it off and it was like, oh no. And then also we're all doing exactly the same thing. It was a slightly strange anti-climax in the end. But full credit to Borderline, 12-6, thoroughly deserved the victory. It's just they came out of the blocks a lot faster. The Tragic Hips took a bit of time to adjust, and eventually was.
And also, I think Borderline potentially spending that little bit more time before the game practicing their throws in this wind. And when it is this windy and when it was different to previous days, having those extra minutes, those extra reps is really crucial.
So we're just seeing some of the highlights again here. This end of this first game between Borderline and Tragic Hips. 12-6 it ends to Borderline. Do stay tuned with us here on the ulti.tv YouTube channel, where you can watch all the games from Pitch 1 live and for free. Coming up today, next we have Gal from Germany versus America's Man Down, and then the Young Legends versus Borderline at 3:30, and America versus Gal at 5 o'clock at all European time. That's going to do it for us here at Ulti TV and at the World Great Grandmasters Beach Ultimate Club Championships. For all of our crew here, for Ali Thomas, I've been Benjamin Rees, and I will see you on the other side.
We're a group of ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe, Ultimate TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
fund
our
our
work to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.